Confidence, everyone wants it. Few understand it. You've been told it's natural, that some people just have it, but that's a lie. Confidence isn't magic. It's not born, it's built. Every person you've ever admired, every leader you've ever envied, every so-called naturally confident human, they all started in the same place you did, uncertain, afraid, and untested. The difference isn't luck, it's repetition. The world glorifies the result, the speech, the success, the spotlight, but hides the process that made it possible. It hides the hours of silence, the failures no one saw, the mornings they didn't feel ready but acted anyway. You see the surface, they lived the structure. You see the moment, they endured the months. Confidence isn't a gift. It's the byproduct of consistency. The 99% wait for permission. They wait to feel ready, wait for validation, wait for proof that it will work. They say things like, once I feel confident, I'll start. But that's backward. You don't act because you're confident. You become confident because you act. Waiting reinforces fear. Action rewires it. The 1% know this truth. Confidence doesn't come before the leap. It comes after. Every step forward, even the smallest, is a declaration. Every promise kept is evidence. Every moment you move despite uncertainty, you're teaching your brain a new identity. I can trust myself. And that trust, not talent, not personality, not popularity, is the real foundation of confidence. Most people will never know that feeling because they confuse comfort with safety. They think staying small protects them, but comfort is a cage disguised as peace. It feels soft, but it suffocates slowly. The longer you wait, the more you shrink. The 1% understand this. They use fear as fuel. They turn discomfort into data. Every failure becomes proof of progress. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's mastery over reaction. It's the calm between hesitation and execution. That split second when you feel the pull of doubt and move anyway. You don't need to silence fear to become confident. You just need to stop listening to it. Because courage doesn't replace fear. It coexists with it and then commands it. This is where your transformation begins. Not into someone louder, but someone stronger. Not into someone who pretends, but someone who proves. Because real confidence doesn't shout, it doesn't beg for attention, it stands still, calm, composed, certain. It's the quiet knowing that you can handle whatever comes next because you've built the habits, the evidence, and the discipline to back it up. By the end of this journey, you won't be chasing the illusion of confidence that the world sells you. The fake smiles, the forced energy, the fragile pride. You'll embody something deeper. You'll walk with quiet certainty, speak with grounded truth, and live with deliberate strength. You won't just look confident, you'll be unshakable. Chapter 1. The Mirror of Doubt, Facing What You've Avoided. Every battle starts in silence, not out there in the world, but inside you. In the quiet moments when no one's watching, when the alarm goes off and you lie there negotiating with yourself. That's where it begins. That's where it's won or lost. You know that voice, the one that whispers before you move, that floods your mind with excuses dressed as logic. It tells you you're not ready. It reminds you of every past failure, every promise you broke, every time you said tomorrow and meant never. That voice is persuasive because it sounds like you, but it isn't. It's the part of you that fears evolution. It's the version that's addicted to safety. Self-doubt doesn't scream. It sabotages quietly. It tells you to think it through one more time. It convinces you to wait for the right conditions, the right moment, the right confidence, as if life will ever hand it to you. And the more you listen, the smaller you become. Every hesitation steals momentum. Every moment you delay builds the habit of retreat. You've felt this war. You've lived it. The mornings where you wake up already behind, scrolling through the highlight reels of people who moved while you froze. The plans that started with fire but died in hesitation. The projects you never began because you convinced yourself someone else was better. The truth? It's not talent that separates you. It's tolerance. Your tolerance for self-doubt. The version of you that hesitates lives in comfort, controlled, predictable, safe. But safe is sterile. It breeds nothing new. The version of you that acts, that moves even when it's messy, even when it's imperfect. That's the version built for progress. Confidence doesn't belong to the careful. It belongs to the courageous. Most people never face themselves long enough to see what's really stopping them. They distract, they justify, they rationalize their stagnation until it becomes identity. But growth begins the moment you look straight into the mirror and tell the truth. I've been avoiding myself, not because you're lazy, not because you're incapable, but because you're afraid of what you'll see when the noise stops. The mirror doesn't lie. It reflects not only who you are, but who you've refused to become. Every excuse you've built, every delay you've justified, every standard you've lowered, it's all there, staring back at you. That's why so few people look deeply. They can't stand the reflection of their own potential. But awareness, that painful, uncomfortable confrontation, is the first act of courage. When you finally stop running from your reflection, you begin to reclaim control. You see the pattern for what it is, not weakness, but avoidance. You realize that every time you avoided discomfort, you traded growth for temporary peace. You chose the short-term relief of distraction over the long-term reward of discipline. This is where you shift. You stop asking, "Why am I like this?" and start asking, "What am I avoiding?" Because avoidance is the architect of doubt. Every time you ignore what you need to face, it grows stronger. Every truth you refuse to admit multiplies the fear that feeds it. Think of the version of yourself you want to be, the one who moves with calm certainty, who follows through without second guessing. That person isn't braver than you. They've just stopped lying. They've stopped pretending they don't know what needs to change. They've stopped numbing the noise and started listening to it. That's the paradox. To build confidence, you must first face everything that destroyed it. You must revisit the moments where you quit, the times you broke your word, the seasons you chose comfort over courage. You don't revisit them to feel shame. You revisit them to reclaim power, because power lives in ownership. When you can say, "Yes, that was me, but it's not me anymore," you break the cycle. Look closer. The same mind that doubts you can also discipline you. The same voice that criticizes you can be retrained to command you. But it begins with awareness, the willingness to see, without judgment, who you've become. Not to punish yourself, but to understand yourself. Because what you understand, you can control. What you ignore controls you. It's time to stop flinching at your reflection. You've spent too long trying to escape it. The mirror is not your enemy, it's your map. It shows you where you stand and where you've stopped. It shows you what must be rebuilt. Confidence doesn't start with pretending to be strong. It starts with admitting where you're still weak. Every confident person you admire once faced this same reckoning. They stood in front of their mirror and admitted the truth. I'm not consistent. I'm not disciplined. I'm scared. But I'm done lying about it. That's the moment power begins. The moment truth replaces denial. Because you can't improve what you refuse to confront. You can't lead yourself while lying to yourself. You can't build confidence on illusions, only on truth. And this is your truth. You're not broken. You are simply unfinished. The doubt you feel isn't proof of weakness. It's a sign that your potential is louder than your excuses. Every time you feel that resistance, it's your higher self reminding you there's more to build. So face the mirror, not to judge, but to meet the version of you who's been waiting to take control. Let the reflection remind you of your responsibility. Let the discomfort sharpen your focus. This is where real confidence begins, not in noise, not in pretense, but in the quiet courage to see yourself fully and decide, I'm done hiding, because the only way to destroy doubt is to drag it into the light. And when you do, you'll realize it was never bigger than you. It only survived because you refused to look. You can't build confidence on illusions, only on truth. Chapter 2. The Physics of Belief. Proof over feelings. Belief feels like magic, but it's not. It's mechanics. There's a physics to it, an equation that governs how confidence grows. Belief equals evidence times repetition. It's not about what you feel, it's about what you prove. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you add weight to the side of belief. Every time you break one, you subtract. It's that simple and that real. The problem is, most people treat confidence like emotion, not data. They wait to feel ready before they act, not realizing that feelings are unreliable narrators. Some days you'll wake up certain, others unsure. Some days your energy will surge, others it will vanish. If your discipline depends on emotion, your progress will always be unstable. The 1% don't rely on emotion, they rely on evidence. They understand that consistency builds trust, and trust builds confidence. Think of belief as gravity. It's not something you choose to obey, it just works. If you drop something, it falls. If you act repeatedly, your brain starts to believe what you keep doing. You become the sum of your repetitions. Each small action reinforces identity, carving the truth deeper into your mind. I follow through. The 99% build beliefs through talk. They speak of dreams but never deliver on them. They say, I'll start Monday, or I'll change when I feel motivated. But belief doesn't care about declarations. It measures execution. The mind doesn't record what you intend. It records what you do. Every kept promise becomes data that strengthens self-trust. Every broken one becomes proof that you can't rely on yourself. Over time, those micro decisions stack into identity. This is why discipline matters more than emotion. When you wake up early despite fatigue, that's data. When you train on the days you'd rather rest, that's data. When you finish what you start, that's data. Each piece compounds. Repetition turns into proof. Proof turns into belief, and belief turns into confidence. You can't outthink self-doubt. You can only outproof it. Confidence isn't a thought pattern. It's a track record. You've been trying to talk your way into belief when you should have been building it brick by brick. The science is simple. The more consistent the repetition, the stronger the neural connection. The more evidence your brain sees, the harder it becomes to disbelieve. This is why faking confidence doesn't work. Pretending may trick others, but it doesn't trick your subconscious. It knows when you haven't earned it. You can wear the mask for a moment, but your mind keeps score. And when the mask slips, doubt returns. Real belief comes from proof, not performance. The good news? You can rewire this. Every action is a vote. Each time you do the thing you said you would, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Most people underestimate how much small actions matter. They think big changes require big moments. But identity isn't built in events. It's built in repetitions. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. You might think, but what about when I fail? Doesn't that break trust? No. Failure only breaks you when you stop learning from it. The 1% use failure as feedback. They don't interpret mistakes as proof they can't. They use them as data to improve how they can. Every failed attempt still counts if it ends in awareness. The key is to stay in motion because movement, not perfection, is what strengthens belief. Think of every action as a rep. Just like lifting a weight, the muscle of belief grows through resistance. The early reps are the hardest because the evidence is weak. You'll hear the voice of doubt louder in those moments. It's not working. You're wasting time. You'll never change. That's not true speaking. That's old identity defending itself. But each rep weakens that voice. Each rep replaces opinion with proof. Repetition is sacred. It's not about routine for routine's sake. It's about constructing identity through consistency. You're not just working out, writing, or learning. You're building the story your mind believes about you. When you repeat, I finish what I start, enough times through action, your brain has no choice but to believe it. The greatest power you can develop is self-trust. Because when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. You stop outsourcing confidence to outcomes. You no longer need external validation to feel worthy. You walk differently, speak differently, decide differently. Not because you've convinced yourself you're great, but because you've proven it. That's why the 1% seems so composed under pressure. They're not fearless. They're faithful. They have faith in their own patterns. They've built enough evidence to know that even if they fall, they'll get back up. That's belief at its highest form, not fantasy, but factual certainty earned through consistency. If you want to change how you see yourself, stop waiting for new feelings and start collecting new evidence. You're not trying to believe harder, you're trying to prove longer. Every day is a new experiment. You're either reinforcing self-trust or eroding it. There's no neutrality. This is the physics of belief. Evidence creates trust. Trust creates confidence. Confidence creates results. Results create more evidence. That's the loop. That's the engine that drives every high performer, every disciplined leader, every confident human you've ever admired. They're not superhuman. They're simply consistent. So today, stop asking, how do I feel? And start asking, what have I proven? Because belief doesn't care about emotion. It cares about evidence. Confidence isn't the fire before the work. It's the fire that the work creates. Every repetition counts. Every kept promise compounds. Every act of discipline writes a new line in your story. Confidence isn't built in your head. It's built in your habits. Chapter 3. The Enemy Within. Reprogramming the inner voice. There's a voice inside your head that never shuts up. You know it well. It criticizes before you even act. It doubts before you even try. It narrates failure before success has a chance to breathe. It's the quiet assassin of momentum. Subtle, strategic, and always on time. This voice knows your weaknesses because it is you. It sounds like reason. It sounds like logic. It tells you it's protecting you from embarrassment, from pain, from disappointment. But protection and paralysis look the same from the outside. That inner critic isn't your enemy by nature. It became one over time. Its job was once to keep you safe, but its methods are outdated. And now what once protected you has become what confines you. Think back to the first time you failed, the first time you tried something and were met with ridicule or rejection. That's when the critic was born. It learned that risk equals pain. It promised you it would never let that happen again. So it started whispering, "Don't try, don't speak, don't stand out." And for a while it worked. You stayed safe. But safe and alive are not the same. Now the voice has grown louder. Every time you reach for something greater, it pulls you back with a flood of reminders. Your past mistakes, your insecurities, your fears. It's mastered the art of subtle sabotage. You're not ready. This isn't the right time. You don't have what it takes. It speaks in statements that sound like truth, but are really commands disguised as concern. Here's the revelation. That voice is not the truth. It's a pattern. It doesn't predict the future. It protects the past. It's not wise. It's wounded. And until you understand that, it will keep you locked inside the same story. You can't kill the voice. You can't silence it forever. But you can reprogram it. You can train it to work for you instead of against you. The key is language, the script that runs your mind. Every word you repeat becomes instruction. Every label you accept becomes law. The critic is powerful because it uses your own language against you. Change the language, and you change its orders. Start with awareness. Catch the voice when it speaks. Don't fight it, study it. Notice when it shows up. Notice what triggers it. Is it right before you begin? Is it when things start working? The critic thrives in transitions. When you're about to grow, when you're about to change. That's when it panics. It sees expansion as danger. But you can teach it that growth is safety. Here's how. Replace reaction with command. When the critic says, "You're not ready," you answer, "I'm becoming ready." When it says, "You can't handle this," you answer, "I'm learning to." You don't argue with the voice, you lead it. That's the difference between self-sabotage and self-command. One obeys emotion, the other obeys discipline. You can retrain your inner voice the same way you train a muscle, through repetition. Every time you replace negativity with direction, you weaken the critic's control. The mind adapts to the language it hears most often. Feed it hesitation, and it will doubt. Feed it direction, and it will obey. This isn't toxic positivity. This is neural rewiring. Your brain believes what you repeat, whether it's fear or focus. Every thought is a signal. Every signal becomes instruction. When you say, "I always mess things up," your mind looks for proof. When you say, "I'm learning to improve," it looks for progress. The critic obeys the dominant pattern. So make confidence the dominant pattern. Understand this. The inner critic doesn't disappear when you grow. It just evolves. The stakes get higher, so its voice gets smarter. It learns your new weaknesses. It studies your momentum. That's why mastery isn't about silencing the voice. It's about governing it. You don't need a quieter mind. You need a stronger commander. Think of elite performers, athletes, leaders, creators. They all hear the same doubts you do. The difference is what they do with them. When their mind says, "You can't," they respond, "Watch me." When fear whispers, "What if you fail?" they answer, "What if I don't?" They redirect the script. They don't let the voice decide. They use it as resistance training. You can do the same. When the critic attacks, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a signal that you're expanding. It only screams when you're stepping into territory it doesn't understand. That means you're growing. That means you're winning. So the next time the voice says, "You're not enough," don't shrink. Smile, because now you know it's only echoing your potential back at you. It's afraid of what you're becoming. Use that energy. Turn that fear into fuel. Every time you move forward anyway, the critic loses its credibility. Every act of courage makes its words weaker. Over time, your voice changes tone. It starts to follow your lead. The critic that once sabotaged you becomes the coach that sharpens you. Its warnings become whispers of focus. Be careful turns into be prepared. Don't try turns into do it right. That's what mastery feels like. Not silence, but alignment. The real goal isn't to eliminate self-doubt. It's to integrate it. Doubt keeps you humble. Fear keeps you sharp. The trick is to make them work for you, not against you. That's what discipline does. It gives emotion structure. It teaches the voice who's in charge. Because confidence isn't the absence of noise. It's control within it. It's the ability to move forward even when your mind screams stop. The critic doesn't vanish. It learns to fall in line behind command. So remember this. The voice inside you will always speak. But now you get to choose the language it speaks in. You get to decide if it feeds your weakness or follows your will. You can't silence the voice, but you can make it obey. Chapter 4. The Discipline Equation. Structure creates freedom. There's a moment early in the morning when the world is still asleep, when the air feels heavier, the silence sharper. That's where confidence is built. Not in grand speeches or viral victories, but in the quiet decisions no one sees. That's where discipline lives, and discipline is the foundation of every confident life. Most people misunderstand freedom. They think it means doing whatever they want, whenever they want. But that kind of freedom leads to chaos, scattered energy, wasted days, broken promises. Real freedom doesn't come from doing less. It comes from doing what matters consistently. Discipline isn't restriction. It's structure. It's the architecture that supports peace of mind. Look at the 1%. They aren't the most motivated. They're simply the most consistent. Motivation is emotion. Fleeting, unreliable, dramatic. Discipline is principle. Steady, logical, unshakable. Motivation depends on how you feel. Discipline depends on who you are. That's why the 99% start strong and fade fast, while the 1% keep moving long after the excitement dies. Every time you choose structure over impulse, you build self-respect. Every early morning, every completed task, every decision to do what you said you'd do, those are deposits in the bank of confidence. The more you deposit, the richer your belief becomes. You stop begging yourself for energy because discipline creates it. You stop waiting for inspiration because discipline doesn't negotiate, it executes. Picture it. The alarm rings before dawn. The temptation whispers, 5 more minutes. But you move anyway, not because it's easy, but because it's who you've decided to be. That moment of resistance, that micro battle, is where your identity is shaped. The weak wait for comfort. The strong create certainty through repetition. Discipline is not punishment. It's power. It's the act of reclaiming control over the one thing you can truly command: yourself. The world will always be unpredictable. People will fail you. Circumstances will shift. But your structure, your system, your discipline, that's yours. It's the calm within the storm, the anchor that holds you steady when everything else spins. And here's the paradox. Discipline doesn't confine you. It frees you. The person who lives by impulse becomes a slave to emotion. The person who lives by principle moves with peace. When your days are structured, your mind is silent. You no longer waste energy deciding whether to act. You've already decided. You just follow through. Chaos drains confidence because chaos breeds doubt. Without discipline, you question everything. Should I? Can I? Will I? Discipline removes the debate. It replaces hesitation with execution. You no longer need to feel like doing something. You simply do it. That's what self-command looks like. That's what unshakable confidence feels like. The quiet knowing that you'll always show up no matter what. The 99% live reactive lives. They chase moods, trends, and convenience. They let comfort dictate their direction. The 1% live deliberate lives. They build systems that eliminate excuses. Their mornings are sacred. Their routines are ritual. They don't rely on discipline when it's convenient. They rely on it because it's necessary. Imagine two versions of yourself. One wakes up late, scrambles through the day, reacting to every demand, apologizing to every missed opportunity. The other rises with purpose, follows a plan, finishes strong. The difference isn't talent, it's structure. One lives by reaction, the other by rhythm. You become confident not by chasing perfection, but by mastering consistency. Each disciplined day says to your mind, I can trust me. That's the real definition of confidence. Self-trust earned through structure. It's not the loud roar of temporary motivation. It's the steady heartbeat of reliability. There's beauty in the repetition, in the routine, in the ordinary acts of extraordinary people. You'll find greatness in the unglamorous, the early run, the late study, the quiet reflection. Discipline transforms the mundane into momentum. It turns habits into identity. It builds the kind of confidence that doesn't need applause because it's rooted in proof. Structure doesn't kill creativity, it channels it. It turns scattered potential into focused power. The mind works best when the day is designed, when chaos is tamed, when priorities are clear. That's why the disciplined seem calmer. They've already made the hard choices. They live by decision, not distraction. And yes, I know it's hard at first. Discipline feels heavy before it feels holy. Your body resists it, your emotions rebel against it. But resistance is the price of respect. Every time you push through it, you're teaching your mind obedience. You're building a reputation with yourself, one that says, I follow through even when I don't feel like it. Because that's the truth. Emotion-driven people exhaust themselves chasing momentum. Principle-driven people generate it. Confidence doesn't come from motivation. It comes from momentum. And momentum comes from discipline. It's a chain reaction. Action creates energy. Energy creates belief. Belief creates confidence. When your life gains structure, your self-doubt loses strength. You don't wonder if you'll make it. You know you will, because your systems won't allow anything else. The 1% don't rise above chaos by chance. They design their way out of it. They build environments that align with their goals. They remove the friction, the distraction, the noise. That's the discipline equation. Freedom equals structure. Confidence equals consistency. Power equals repetition. Every disciplined act is a vote for freedom. Every consistent day is proof that you're capable. Every completed task is one more brick in the fortress of self-belief. And when people call you rigid, remember, it's the undisciplined who are truly trapped. They're prisoners of emotion, slaves to circumstance, victims of their own chaos. But you're building something unshakable, because once you master discipline, you no longer need to chase confidence. You start living it. Chapter 5, The Focus Factor, Protecting Your Mental Territory. Your mind is a battlefield. Every notification, every scroll, every comparison, another shot fired at your attention. The world isn't trying to inspire you, it's trying to consume you. And the price of distraction is confidence. Because every time you give away your focus, you give away your power. Distraction is the silent killer of modern potential. It doesn't announce itself with chaos. It arrives disguised as entertainment, productivity, or connection. You tell yourself you're just checking something, and hours disappear. You convince yourself you're staying informed, but you're really feeding noise. And every time you scatter your attention, you weaken your identity. You can't feel strong when your mind is fragmented. You can't trust yourself when your focus belongs to everything but you. The 99% live like this: overstimulated, underfulfilled, mentally exhausted. Their thoughts jump from one screen to the next, their energy leaking through every open tab in their life. But the 1% think differently. They understand that focus isn't optional, it's sacred. Focus is how confidence breathes. When your mind is scattered, you lose clarity. When clarity goes, direction follows. Without direction, discipline has nowhere to aim. The modern world sells you comfort in exchange for control. And most people take the deal. They trade presence for distraction, peace for stimulation, power for convenience. But you don't rise by indulging noise. You rise by defending silence. Think about it. When was the last time you sat in complete quiet without reaching for your phone, without refreshing your feed, without needing a hit of information to feel alive? Silence is uncomfortable because it exposes truth. It forces you to hear your own thoughts, and for many that's terrifying. But silence is also the soil of focus. It's where you remember what actually matters. Focus is a weapon, but it requires defense. You have to protect your mental territory like a soldier protects their ground. That means boundaries. That means discipline. That means saying no, not just to people, but to noise. You can't fight for your future while entertaining your distractions. You can't build confidence while feeding comparison. The modern enemy isn't failure, it's fragmentation. Every moment your attention is stolen, your sense of self erodes. Because identity grows from what you pay attention to. What you focus on expands. What you ignore decays. If you constantly consume other people's lives, you forget to live your own. You stop hearing your inner voice because it's buried under the noise of 1,000 others. The 1% operate differently. They build fortresses of focus. They guard their mornings like treasure, protect their solitude like gold. They understand that stillness is a strategy, not weakness. Solitude is where vision forms. Journaling, reflection, and deep work are their weapons. They turn inward to sharpen outward. Journaling is not just writing, it's weaponizing clarity. It's how you declutter your thoughts, identify your priorities, and reframe your emotions. When your thoughts live only in your head, they multiply and distort. But once you write them down, you take control of the narrative. You define, organize, and direct. That's what confident people do. They lead their thoughts instead of following them. Presence is another layer of armor. The ability to be fully where you are, not half in your task and half in your feed. Most people are physically present but mentally absent. They're here but thinking about there. They're working but scrolling, talking but half listening, living but not alive. Confidence comes from coherence, when your thoughts, actions, and attention align in one direction. Focus simplifies life. It strips away the unnecessary. It reminds you that not everything deserves access to your energy. Every open loop in your attention is a leak in your power. You need to learn to close them ruthlessly. You don't owe your time to everyone. You don't owe your attention to every piece of noise. You owe your energy to the mission that defines you. You're not just fighting distraction, you're reclaiming sovereignty. Because focus isn't about productivity, it's about presence. It's about being powerful enough to choose what matters and ignore what doesn't. It's the art of staying centered in a world built to pull you apart. Imagine walking through chaos, horns blaring, people shouting, screens flashing, but you remain still inside. That's focus. That's calm power. That's what makes leaders magnetic. Their ability to stay composed while everyone else scatters. Confidence isn't loud, it's laser sharp. The more you narrow your focus, the more unstoppable you become. The 99% will call it obsession. They'll say you're too serious, too focused, too disconnected. But what they call obsession, the 1% call alignment. Because once you've tasted mental clarity, distraction feels like poison. You'll notice how noisy the world really is, how overstimulation has become the norm. You'll begin craving simplicity, not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. That's the secret. Focus isn't about doing more. It's about removing what doesn't serve you. You don't find time for what matters. You make time by cutting what doesn't. Every no you say to distraction is a yes to confidence. So build your mental fortress, guard your mornings, design your days, set boundaries around your attention the way you'd protect your most valuable asset, because it is your most valuable asset. What you focus on becomes your future. And remember, this isn't about perfection. You'll slip, you'll get distracted, but the disciplined mind always returns. Every time you refocus, you strengthen control. Every moment of presence rebuilds trust in yourself. That's how focus compounds, like interest on your potential. In the end, distraction destroys identity. Focus defines it. The more you guard your attention, the more you reclaim your confidence. Because confidence isn't built through noise, it's built through clarity. Silence isn't weakness. Solitude isn't isolation. They're strategy. They're how the 1% stay powerful in a world that profits from your attention. Now that your mind is sharp, it's time to step into the world that tests it. Chapter 6. The Social Battlefield. Standing tall in a noisy world. You can master your inner world, but sooner or later, life will test that mastery in public. The quiet focus you've built alone must now stand against the noise of others, because the real challenge isn't finding peace in solitude. It's keeping it when the world demands your attention, your reaction, your approval. This is the social battlefield where confidence meets pressure. It's not about how loud you are, how flashy you seem, or how many people validate you. It's about presence, the silent force that commands respect without asking for it. Presence is confidence made visible. It's the stillness in your posture, the certainty in your tone, the calm that others can feel before you speak a word. Most people walk into rooms searching for cues, scanning faces for acceptance, adjusting themselves to fit the mood, trying to be liked instead of being real. That's not connection, that's submission. When you chase approval, you hand over your identity. You give strangers the power to decide your worth, and no one who constantly performs can ever feel at peace. The 99% want to be seen, the 1% want to be felt. You can see anyone, but presence is felt through energy, through alignment between who you are and how you show up. Confidence isn't an act, it's congruence. When your inner world and outer expression match, you radiate quiet authority. Approval seeking is an addiction. It trains you to measure your value in reactions. You start modifying your truth to keep others comfortable. You start dressing, speaking, living for applause instead of purpose, but applause fades. Respect doesn't. When you stop chasing validation, you start attracting authenticity. People trust those who no longer need to be liked. Confidence doesn't mean dominance. It's not about towering over others or being the loudest voice in the room. True strength is calm. It doesn't need to prove. It simply is. You've seen this before. The person who walks in without saying a word, yet everyone senses something different about them. That's what stillness does. It anchors energy. While others scatter, the grounded remains centered. To stand tall in a noisy world, you must first stop mirroring it. Don't match chaos, counter it with composure. When people rush, slow down. When they gossip, stay silent. When they posture, remain still. Nothing unsettles the insecure like the unreactive, because reaction is control lost. Calm is control mastered. Confidence expressed through humility is unstoppable. You don't need arrogance when you know who you are. You don't need to prove your worth when your actions already do. The arrogant shout because their certainty is fragile. The grounded listen because their certainty is real. The world mistakes volume for value, but you'll know better. Social detachment doesn't mean isolation. It means freedom. It's choosing presence over performance. It's being able to walk into any room, whether filled with critics or admirers, and remain the same person. That's rare. That's power. The world bends for those who don't flinch. You build this power through awareness. Before you enter a room, check your energy. Ask yourself, am I here to prove or to contribute? Approval seekers prove, leaders contribute. When you walk with purpose, every step carries weight. You don't demand attention. Attention naturally aligns with intention. Your body speaks before you do. Stand tall, shoulders back, chin level, breathe slow. Stillness signals control. You don't need to rush your words. Silence is your ally. The most confident people in the world use pauses like punctuation. They don't fill space, they own it. Because space is where authority lives. And when people challenge you, as they will, you don't react, you respond. The difference? Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. Let others spend their energy proving themselves. You preserve yours by observing. You don't argue for validation. You demonstrate it through calm consistency. You don't need to win every debate. Your composure wins it for you. Understand this. Being grounded doesn't make you cold. You can be kind and firm. You can be warm and immovable. Power isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the ability to remain compassionate without being controlled, to care without collapsing, to love without losing yourself. That's the art of emotional sovereignty, and it's the foundation of true leadership. The world will test this. You'll meet people who try to trigger insecurity, who confuse confidence with arrogance, who project their chaos onto you. Let them. Their noise is proof of your calm. You don't meet fire with fire. You meet it with stillness. Stillness doesn't mean weakness. It means dominance under control. The river doesn't rush to prove its power. It carves mountains in silence. When you detach from needing approval, you discover a deeper truth. Most people aren't watching you to judge. They're watching to find someone who doesn't crumble. Be that person, the steady one, the grounded one, the example of what peace looks like in motion. Because leadership isn't about position, it's about presence. You'll know you've mastered this battlefield when the world grows loud and you grow quieter inside. When insults don't sting because you see them as reflections, not definitions. When praise doesn't inflate you because you no longer crave it. When your confidence is so internalized that nothing external can touch it. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. So walk tall, not because you're trying to look strong, but because you are. Speak slowly, not to control others, but to command yourself. Move with intention, not to impress, but to embody purpose. The social battlefield isn't about defeating others. It's about remaining unshaken in their presence. Because when your confidence is real, it doesn't need to be loud. It needs only to be lived. You've learned to hold your ground. Now you'll learn to rewrite your story. Chapter 7. The Identity Shift. Becoming the 1%. Confidence begins as action, but it ends as identity. You start by doing what confident people do. You show up, follow through, stay consistent, but eventually you stop acting and start being. This is the shift, the moment when confidence is no longer a costume you wear, but the skin you live in. You've built discipline. You've reclaimed focus. You've learned to silence the noise and lead yourself. But now comes the transformation that separates the 99% from the 1%. The shift from behavior to belief, from practice to identity. Identity is the engine behind everything you do. You'll never consistently act out of alignment with who you believe you are. If you think you're weak, every success feels like luck. If you see yourself as strong, every obstacle becomes proof. Identity decides interpretation, and interpretation decides destiny. Most people live in borrowed identities. They're actors trapped in endless auditions, changing costumes to match the crowd. Their confidence rises and falls with their environment. Strong when praised, shaky when ignored. They live for reaction instead of direction. The 1% live differently. Their confidence isn't conditional because their identity isn't rented. It's owned. The 1% don't ask for permission to act. They act because it's who they are. They don't need to prove their worth. Their standards prove it for them. They live by principles, not popularity. Their validation comes from integrity, not applause. This is the secret. The 1% mindset isn't built on results. It's built on repetition and values. Results fluctuate. Discipline doesn't. Outcomes can delay, but effort never lies. The 1% build their belief by showing up again and again until showing up becomes who they are. They no longer wake up and try to be disciplined. They are disciplined. They no longer search for motivation. They embody consistency. It's not about pretending to be confident. It's about building a version of yourself that no longer needs to pretend. You become trustworthy in your own eyes. You keep enough promises that the phrase "I can't" no longer makes sense. You start living in alignment, your thoughts, words, and actions all telling the same story. And once your identity aligns, you stop chasing highs. You stop performing for validation. Because real power doesn't need performance. The loudest in the room often have the weakest sense of self. But the grounded, the consistent, the internally sovereign, they move in silence, and the world adjusts around them. Identity follows evidence. Every act of discipline is proof. Every habit is a vote. You cast those votes daily until your mind no longer doubts the truth. I am the kind of person who follows through. That's how identity rewires. Not through talk, but through track record. This is why the 1% don't break under pressure. They've already rehearsed adversity through consistency. They don't need the world to go easy. They need it to stay real. Because the 1% don't rely on comfort. They rely on character. They understand that control isn't external, it's internal. Confidence is no longer a feeling, it's a reflection of who they've become. The 99% keep searching for the next big breakthrough, the next spark of inspiration, the next new version of themselves. But reinvention doesn't happen in sudden moments. It happens in accumulated evidence. The 1% are not constantly reinventing, they're reinforcing. Every repetition strengthens their identity. Every decision compounds their certainty. Here's the truth. You don't build confidence through affirmations. You build it through alignment. You become powerful when what you believe about yourself matches what you repeatedly do. When your standards are non-negotiable, your energy becomes undeniable. Start asking different questions. Stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" Because every action is a message to your subconscious. Every choice tells your identity what to believe. When you act lazy, you teach your mind you're unreliable. When you follow through, you teach it you're dependable. You're sculpting self-image in real time. Identity mastery means living as proof. It means embodying the mindset of the 1% even when no one's watching. They don't need external accountability because their internal accountability never clocks out. They act like professionals in a world full of amateurs. Not because someone told them to, but because they can't imagine being anything less. This is what sovereignty feels like. The freedom to no longer need permission. The confidence to make choices based on values, not validation. The discipline to uphold standards even when emotion wavers. That's the difference between being confident and becoming confidence itself. You no longer need to say, "I'm trying to be better." You start saying, "This is who I am." The language shifts from effort to embodiment, from "I'm working on it" to "this is my standard." Because when identity is strong, effort feels natural. You don't force what you've become. The 1% identity is forged in the ordinary, not in the spotlight, but in the silence. Not in motivation, but in maintenance. They win not because they crave success, but because they've become incapable of quitting. They've rewired their identity so deeply that excellence is the only way they know how to move. When you reach this level, external validation loses all power. Praise no longer inflates you. Criticism no longer deflates you. You move with neutrality, grounded in truth. You're no longer addicted to being seen. You're devoted to becoming solid. That's when the world starts mirroring your certainty back to you. Because identity shapes reality. You attract what aligns with who you've become. The undisciplined attract chaos. The inconsistent attract uncertainty. But the 1% attract opportunity because they operate from order. Their energy tells the world, I can be trusted. So stop waiting to feel like the 1%. Start acting like them. Today, now, in small ways. Wake up with intention. Follow through without emotion. Speak from truth, not insecurity. Build your identity one disciplined act at a time, and soon you won't need to act confident anymore. You'll just be. You've walked the path from self-doubt to discipline, from chaos to clarity. But this is the arrival point, the moment where your reflection matches your reality. The 1% don't wait for permission. They build it. They don't wish for power. They become it. And when you master identity, you master power. Chapter 8. The Paradox of Power. Calm is the new strength. Power has been misunderstood. You were taught to see it as loud, as dominance, control, and assertion. You were told that strength meant forcing outcomes, winning arguments, proving superiority. But real power doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, it doesn't chase. Real power is calm, it's composure under chaos. It's silence that speaks louder than noise. The final evolution of confidence isn't aggression, it's peace. Because when you truly know who you are, you no longer need to prove it. You no longer need to fight for validation or rush to defend yourself. The powerful don't need to announce their power. They embody it. Calm is the energy of mastery, the quiet control that unsettles those still ruled by chaos. Look around you. The world glorifies intensity, hustle culture, constant urgency, emotional reaction. Everyone's moving fast, talking loud, chasing validation through volume. But speed without direction is self-destruction. The calm move differently. They move slowly, intentionally, deliberately, like chess masters in a world of checkers players. They conserve energy. They think before they strike. They understand that patience is not weakness, it's strategy. When you reach calm, you stop playing defense. You stop reacting to every comment, every judgment, every setback. You start responding with clarity. You no longer need to match anyone's chaos because you've learned the greatest truth of all. He who controls his emotions controls the outcome. That's the paradox, or stillness is power. Because while others burn out proving themselves, you build energy by staying centered. The person who remains calm in a storm holds all the leverage. Everyone else is blinded by emotion. You see everything clearly. That's not passivity, that's precision. Think of a storm. Winds raging, waves crashing, lightning tearing across the sky. And yet in the center, complete stillness. That's what true confidence feels like. Chaos outside, peace inside. You can't stop the storm, but you can control your center. That's what maturity is. The shift from trying to control everything to mastering how you respond to anything. Aggression is insecurity in disguise. It's a performance, a way to mask fear. The loudest one in the room is often the weakest. But composure? Composure is quiet certainty. It says, I could, but I don't need to. It's the power of choice, the ability to act without being triggered, to speak without being provoked, to move without being rushed. This doesn't mean you suppress emotion, it means you direct it. You channel your fire instead of wasting it. You become intentional with your energy. The mature don't avoid conflict, they master timing. They know that not every battle deserves a response. Sometimes silence is the loudest declaration of dominance. Calm confidence unnerves people who thrive on chaos. When you don't react, they lose control. When you don't defend yourself, they lose leverage. When you remain still while they spiral, they reveal their instability, and your composure becomes your greatest weapon. But this level of control isn't gifted. It's earned. It comes from discipline, self-awareness, and repetition. You train it the same way you train your body. Every moment of frustration becomes a rep. Every temptation to overreact becomes a test. Each time you choose stillness over impulse, you strengthen your internal command. Eventually, calm becomes instinct. The 1% understand this. They operate from poise, not panic. They don't need to fight every fight. They pick their moments. They understand that control is not found in aggression, but in awareness. They've mastered the art of doing less, but achieving more. Their presence alone shifts the energy in a room, not because they dominate, but because they stabilize. True power is not resistance to emotion, it's relationship with it. It's knowing how to feel deeply without being consumed. It's remaining grounded in uncertainty, disciplined in difficulty, peaceful in pressure. Calm doesn't mean cold, it means contained. Picture this. Someone insults you, tries to provoke you. The old version of you fires back, defensive, emotional. The new version? You pause, you breathe, you see their intention, and you choose not to dance to their rhythm. That's strength. That's control. You've shifted from reacting to commanding. The situation doesn't own you. You own the situation. When you master calm, you begin to see life differently. You stop labeling moments as good or bad. You start seeing everything as information. You become an observer, not a victim. Every challenge becomes data. Every emotion becomes a signal. You don't panic. You adjust. That's the mindset of mastery. And here's the beauty. Calm power doesn't need recognition. It's invisible to the noisy. While others are busy competing for attention, you're conserving energy for execution. You no longer fight for dominance. You attract it. People begin to follow your rhythm because your presence makes them feel safe, stable, seen. You can always recognize the calm ones. They don't interrupt. They don't brag. They don't chase validation. Their energy says, I know who I am. That's what makes them magnetic. Confidence isn't loud. It's grounded. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one making threats. It's the one who doesn't need to. When you reach this level, confidence evolves into wisdom. You stop needing to win arguments. You start winning peace. You stop trying to be understood. You start understanding yourself. You stop chasing progress and start becoming it. This is where true mastery lives, in restraint, not reaction. The immature demand control of others. The wise command control of themselves. You're becoming the latter. You're learning that serenity is not the absence of power. It's the highest form of it. You've climbed the mountain of discipline. You've conquered distraction. You've built identity. But calm, Calm is the summit. It's the air of the self-mastered. It's what the world feels when it's finally in the presence of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Because real strength doesn't move faster, it moves deeper. Real confidence doesn't flex, it flows. And when you master calm, you master life. Closing chapter, Living Unshakable, the 1% confidence formula. You began this journey uncertain, searching, hoping confidence would someday arrive, as if it were waiting out there, beyond effort, beyond time. But now you know the truth. Confidence isn't found. It's forged. It's not inherited. It's earned. Every moment of hesitation you've faced, every act of courage you've chosen, every promise you've kept, they were never random. They were the blueprint. The 1% confidence formula was never a secret. It's a sequence, a process of becoming. Awareness, action, discipline, identity, calm. The 5 stages that transform confusion into command, chaos into clarity, and potential into power. You've walked each one. You've built yourself step by step, choice by choice, until belief stopped being theory and became identity. It began with awareness. The moment you stopped lying to yourself, the moment you stood in front of your own reflection and said, "I've been avoiding the truth." That was your awakening, the start of self-command. Awareness stripped away illusion. It forced you to face what was real. It taught you that confidence doesn't grow in denial. It grows in honesty. Then came action, the small disciplined steps that turned awareness into motion. You learned that movement cures fear, that hesitation feeds it. You took the leap before you felt ready, and every time you did, you collected evidence, proof that you could trust yourself. Each completed task, each followed through promise, each quiet victory became another brick in the foundation of belief. From action came discipline, the turning point, the shift from emotion to structure, from chaos to rhythm. You realize freedom isn't found in ease, it's found in consistency. The 99% chase motivation, the 1% build systems. Discipline became your anchor, the ritual that turned uncertainty into reliability. Every early morning, every hard choice, every day of effort became a declaration. I am in control of me. And through discipline, you build identity. You stopped pretending to be confident and started becoming confidence itself. The mask fell. The performance ended. Confidence stopped being something you chased. It became the standard you lived by. You didn't need applause to feel capable. You didn't need permission to move. You simply acted, because that's who you were now. Finally came calm, the summit of power, the evolution from proving to being. You discovered that real confidence doesn't roar, it whispers. It stands in storms without shaking. It walks through chaos without losing rhythm. Calm isn't passivity, it's control, the highest form of command. You no longer needed to dominate the world. You mastered yourself, and that mastery made the world align. This is what it means to be unshakable, to move through life with quiet certainty, to meet resistance with stillness, to know deeply and without doubt that no matter what happens, you will handle it. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's the reward for the work you've done. And here's the greatest truth. The formula never ends. You live it daily. You refine it through every challenge. Confidence is a cycle, a practice, not a destination. Awareness keeps you grounded. Action keeps you growing. Discipline keeps you consistent. Identity keeps you anchored. Calm keeps you free. The formula evolves with you, shaping every decision, every thought, every day. Because confidence isn't about control over others, it's control over self. It's not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in its presence. It's not loud or performative. It's quiet power, built in the shadows, tested in the light. You've learned what the 1% have always known. Belief is not granted, it's built. Every repetition, every act of discipline, every moment of stillness, it all compounds into something unstoppable. You've built more than confidence. You've built character. You've built proof. And that proof is your freedom. Look at yourself now. The person who began this journey could barely imagine standing here. You've evolved from hesitation to command, from doubt to direction, from needing validation to defining it. You've proven what most never realize, that everything you were waiting for was already within you, waiting to be activated. You are no longer searching for the 1%. You are the 1%, not by luck, not by birth, by design, because every action is proof. Every day is practice. Every moment is your mirror. You've become what you once chased. You've built the unshakable. You've mastered the formula. And now you live it.